So here we go. I'll read a few lines to try and get into the mood. Rintrah roars and shakes his fires in the burdened air. Hungry clouds swag on the deep. Once meek and in a perilous path, the just man kept his course along the vale of death. And things aren't too bad. It goes on to say roses are planted where thorns grow, and on the barren heath sing the honeybees. So over this primordial landscape, there's a sense of things coming into order, things getting a little bit better. But then the perilous path was planted, he says. And if I know Blake, what he means is in here is this religion has come in to spoil everything. And a river and a spring on every cliff and tomb, and on the bleached bones red clay brought forth. And from that I get that feeling of what Thomas Hobbes said about human life being, red in tooth and claw. There's an animality coming into life. And it says then, till the villain left the paths of ease. In other words, he was living easy. He deliberately chose to be a villain, to walk in perilous paths, and he drove the just man into barren climes. Now the sneaking serpent walks in mild humility, and the just man rages in the wilds where lions roar. This is the frustration of ordinary people who have to deal with the problems of evil people. So, again, here we go back to Rintrah again. He roars and shakes his fires in the burdened air. Hungry clouds swag on the deep. And a new heaven has begun, and it is now 33 years since its advent. The eternal hell revives, and lo, Swedenborg is the angel sitting at the tomb. Now, the curious thing is that Emanuel Swedenborg was born 33 years before Blake. And what's happening is now he's saying that all the sayings of Swedenborg, whose ideas he really did like in the beginning, that his ideas have become like the linen clothes of Jesus in the tomb, all folded up. And what he means by that is then that the real spirit of the Christ has up and gone, and all you're left with is the empty words of Swedenborg, the prophet, if I can put him that way. Okay. Then he says, now is the dominion of Edom. And Edom in the Bible is one of the tribes that gave a lot of trouble to the Israelites. Edom came from Esau, and even though, curiously, if you read Genesis, you can see how very mature and civil Esau was to his brother. Even though he had been robbed of his birthright, still, when tribes came out of Esau, his descendants were always had a hatred towards the tribes that descended from his brother. Okay, so what he goes on to say then is he asks you to read Isaiah 34 and 35, which talks about Edom and how it became known as Idumea, as the Edomites got a chance to move into the southern territory of Israel. They got themselves a different name, but it's basically the same people. And one of the things that I think I was telling you that I really was surprised about when I read these two chapters in Isaiah is how they're written in prose, but they have a very, very poetic feel to them. It's really, really nice to read. Then, typical Blake, in his kind of perhaps autistic way, just blurts out, without contraries, there is no progression. Just like a complete change of subject, attraction and repulsion, reason and energy, love and hate. are necessary to human existence. So, he believes that they're actually necessary. In other words, that the friction between the two actually advances the world ideologically and every other way, you might say. So he says, from these contraries spring what the religious call good and evil. And when he says religious, he usually means there's a negative connotation to it. He says, good is the passive that obeys reason. Evil is the active, springing from energy. Good is heaven, evil is hell. In other words, that's what they say. But when you get to know Blake, he doesn't believe anything like that at all. He thinks that energy is an absolute wonderful thing. And okay, it does need, of course, to have a boundary around it of reason, is the way he puts it. But if there's no energy, there's nothing getting done. So he's a big fan of energy. And now he's going to go on to speaking about the Bible and the devil and all that. But I'll stop for a second and catch my breath.